day. After a short hiatus, I'm returning to our video series, Ask the Archbishop. We received a question a while back that touches on a very broad but challenging topic in church law and in pastoral outreach. This person's question was directly focused on divorced Catholics. This is a challenging question in the church and in society today. I hope the lady who asked the question will bear with me as I first of all try to address how the Catholic Church sees marriage. It is how we understand marriage that gives rise to how we try to understand and reach out to those who have suffered a divorce. So, what is marriage anyway? At least how the Catholic Church sees it. The Catholic Church has taught consistently in its long tradition that marriage is the permanent union of one woman and one man, both of mature age, which is 18 in the Canadian Catholic Church, by which they commit themselves to one another by a free expression of their will, along with the intention and hope of having and raising children. So we're not speaking here of same-sex unions, nor unions where one or both parties have been married before, and that previous marriage is still presumed to be valid. Fundamentally, the Church looks to what Jesus Christ himself said in the Gospel accounts, that what God has joined together, let no one divide. The Church's assumption is that when two unmarried people, a man and a woman, make a public commitment to one another, this is a valid marriage. Even if they are not Catholics or even Christians, the Church accepts the integrity of their commitment as valid. It may not be a sacrament, but it is still a valid and binding marriage. The Church has long seen this unity as reflective of the love bond between God and his people. God's firm commitment of love for us finds expression in the marriage bond. St. John tells us, God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God in them. So God is love, and all genuine love finds its source in God. As God would not abandon us, so we are to remain faithful to one another. This is the spiritual basis of the marriage bond that unites any of us to our spouse. Throughout that relationship, we learn to give ourselves totally to the other, to be selfless, to forgive, to be patient and compassionate. Our love for one another grows and expands. To validly celebrate a marriage, the commitment itself must be free and without any force or coercion. We sometimes hear about shotgun marriages, where usually a boy is forced to marry his pregnant girlfriend. Or in some cultures, the marriage is arranged by the parents of both the young man and the young woman. I've had many conversations with people from countries where this is the norm. I now recognize that arranged marriages are not forced, and most of these often end up being very happy marriages. The young couple are still exercising their free will in choosing one another in matrimony. I said earlier that a valid marriage includes the intention and hope of having and raising children. Let me tell you a short story about my mother and me. One year I went home to Halifax, and once inside my mother's apartment, she was bursting to tell me what was all over the Halifax news, that a young couple who wanted to get married in the Catholic Church went to see their priest, and he refused to marry them because they didn't want children. My mother, who always favored the underdog, said to me, "That's not right." I had to say to her, "Yes, it is, Mum." "Well, when your father and I went to get married, the priest never asked us that question." "I'm sure he did, Mum," I countered, "but I'm sure you thought that was a stupid question. In your mind, you would have said, of course we want children. But that's not always the case. If a couple cannot conceive their own children, that doesn't invalidate their marriage, but the refusal to have children does." In the Roman Church, or as we call it, the Latin Rite of the Catholic Church, it is the woman and the man who are themselves the ministers of the sacrament of marriage. The priest or deacon are official witnesses, so to speak, but it is the couple who solemnize the sacrament. In the Eastern churches, say like the Ukrainian Catholic Church, it is the priest who is the only minister of the sacrament of marriage. As we know from studying the sacraments, the first sacrament that anyone receives is baptism. Those who have not been baptized cannot receive the sacrament of marriage. So if a baptized Catholic marries a non-baptized person, then this is not the sacrament of marriage, although it is a valid marriage if the proper dispensations have been granted by the bishop. The Catholic Church takes marriage very seriously. This is why we are careful and deliberate about the preparation for this sacrament. In most dioceses, the two people intending to marry are expected to notify their parish priest at least 6 months prior to the planned wedding date. There is an inquiry that the priest makes about the couple, their circumstances, and their intentions in wanting to get married. If one of the parties has been married previously, even outside of the church, a dispensation may be necessary from the bishop or a declaration of nullity applied for. The latter usually takes a year or more to be processed. As with all sacraments, some preparation is needed so that the couple understand clearly the Church's teaching on marriage and family life. We have a saying that a wedding takes a day, but a marriage takes a lifetime. The engaged couple may be focused on the details of the wedding ceremony: dress, bridesmaids and groomsmen, the banquet, invitations. It's understandable that young people want their special day to be perfect, or as perfect as possible. The Church's focus, however, is directed more to the relationship itself, the human and spiritual maturity of the bride and groom, and the virtues that are needed to live a happy married life. I can't help but notice that fewer people are getting married in the Church than in previous generations. When I was a parish priest years ago, almost every weekend in the summer would be booked for at least one wedding. As the yearly statistics are presented to me now, I realize that many must be opting for other circumstances to celebrate their love and commitment. The Catholic Church expects baptized Catholics to marry according to church laws and customs. The very definition of marriage and the way it is celebrated is in flux in the society around us, while for the Catholic Church, it is a sacrament, a sacred vocation. Perhaps the most important pastoral outreach the Church can provide today to the married, to the divorced, and to all peoples is to affirm simply and clearly the true meaning of marriage. Marriage is not just a public ceremony, nor is it just about the romantic feeling between two people. Marriage is a vow made before God, and by which God unites two souls as one. Marriage is a sacrament, a religious and holy event. In every sacrament, we encounter in a real and tangible way the person of Jesus Christ, and this is also true of the sacrament of marriage. He alone is our light and our salvation, and it is the love of Jesus, the love of God, that should be the sustaining center of every Catholic marriage.